Happy 187th birthday, Mrs Beeton. Mrs Beeton was born in London in 1836, and despite her relatively short life, dying at the age of just 28, she is one of the more influential and famous women of Victorian England, apart from the obvious one. She trained as a pianist in Germany, and then when she was 20, she married a wealthy publisher named Samuel Beeton. This move would work out very well for her. She was very adept at writing and worked as a columnist for the Englishwoman's Domestic Magazine and as a translator, translating fictional stories from French to English for publication by her husband. Her most famous work is the Book of Household Management, a book so successful and influential on the running of households in Britain that it has never been out of print and it's still going today. Since it's her birthday, I thought I'd try and cook one of the recipes from her Book of Household Management. So I'm going to try a recipe for leek and potato soup. Let's go. So what you're going to need is 2 potatoes, 3 leeks, 70 grams of rice, a thick slice of bread, some salt, some pepper, and a litre of boiling water. I've halved everything. Originally this recipe's for 8 people, and I'm not eating 8 people's worth of soup. It's worth noting about this book the immense amount of detail that are given in the recipes compared to other cookbooks of the time. It's got amounts, such as the salt is a teaspoonful of salt and half that of pepper. It's got temperatures, it's specific on how to cut things. She specifically says the leeks should be peeled and cut into thin slices as far as the whites extend upwards from the root. You might think, oh yeah, but that's just a recipe, isn't it? But no, back then cookbooks were written by professional chefs or professional chefs. Most of the things like that would have been common knowledge. It's more of a look at what I did, look at what I put together, not this is how you do it. Mrs Beeton changes that, writing cookbooks for housewives, so that in her own words you could provide men with such well-cooked food at home as they could expect at their clubs, well-ordered taverns and dining houses. She also includes cost to make it easier to manage household finances. Once everything's chopped up and you've put it in the boiling water, go ahead and stick a lid on it and boil it for an hour. Or, in the words of Mrs Beeton, till all the ingredients are thoroughly done and their several juices extracted and mixed. What a great description. Now, oddly for a cook and a food writer, she didn't like an awful lot of foods. She said mangoes tasted like turpentine, lobsters were indigestible, garlic was offensive, potatoes were suspicious, and cheese could only be consumed by sedentary people. She recommended boiling carrots for up to 2 hours and 15 minutes and cooking pasta for 1 hour and 45 minutes. Some of this has been updated in the modern book, and it also now includes things like microwaves and electric kettles. She does dictate 23 pages of her book to the duties of servants, etiquette, childcare, entertaining company, but most of it's recipes. And almost every page has an illustration to show how things should be presented. Again, this was not common for the time. Printing's expensive. Mrs Beeton's first child died less than 6 months old, potentially due to her husband having contracted syphilis before the marriage, but nothing can be proven. She then had a series of miscarriages, which is seen as further proof of the infection. Her second son died at the age of 3, and on the 29th of January 1865, she went into labour again. After giving birth, Isabella suffers from perpetual fever, and on the 6th of February, she dies aged 28. So that's the story of Mrs Beeton, the writer of the first cookbook published for the general public and the creator of this soup. Now, this is... it's a bit bland by today's standards. Again, she did kind of believe that soup was for the infirm and invalids, so it makes sense that you wouldn't want something overly rich or flavoursome. It also might not be great because I might not be a very good cook. So by all means, I am no historical chef. And if you found this interesting, you should definitely go and check out Tasting History with Max Miller. He's fantastic. He's a brilliant cook and a brilliant historian. He's got some great recipes. They're made really nice and simple for you to follow along with at home. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, do the YouTube or the TikTok thing, depending on where you're watching. And I'll see you tomorrow.